Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Saturday night. It is now, apparently, our book club night. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. Use she, her pronouns. I have to get better about saying that in the intro. How are we doing tonight? It is the last Saturday of 2023, and has it been a year? Looking forward to putting this one in the rear view, as they say. But we're here to talk about books, and fun books, and books that we enjoyed, or books that we thought about, or anything else. Books that we're going to think about going into the new year, things that we might enjoy in the new year, even. I've been doing a lot of reading recently, because I've had time, which is a good thing. And I, just here to enjoy the books. It's what it is. That's the plan. But how are we doing tonight? How are you all out there in the interwebs, in the other existence of, like, the real world, I guess? But, I guess the question is, what do we start with? Do we start with the books that we're looking forward to, or the books that we really, really enjoyed? What the plan is going forward? I think what I'll do is I'll start with the two things that I'm positive I'm going to do after the new year starts. Carlin says, I read a book today. Well, I read part of a book today. Okay, I opened a book today. Is that like the, you had a salad that was really a pizza? But hey, Krellin, read what you can. Read when you can. Enjoy what you can. But I think I'm going to start with my planned reading for the beginning of next year, at least for the first couple weeks, because I got gift cards for Christmas, which meant I went to go book shopping today. I went to a bookstore. It was great. They didn't have the books I wanted on the shelf, so I ordered them, and they will be here in the next couple days. But I did get one book in person that we're going to read. So I guess starting with what we're going to start with in 2024. Oh, I didn't grab the right one. Crap. Oh well. Going to start with the next book in this series. This is Ancillary Sword. The next book and the last book in this trilogy is Ancillary's Mercy. Yeah, Justice, Sword, Mercy. Yeah, Ancillary Mercy, which is the conclusion to this trilogy, but there are like two other books that are in the same universe that are nominally connected. So start the year off with some good sci-fi, and by start the year, I mean probably start reading this on Monday, if not sooner. For at least the first, that will put, start with Ancillary, finishing the Radic trilogy, and then getting ready, because that'll put us in position to read Provenance and Translation State probably later in the year. But finish the Ancillary trilogy first. And then I ordered, will it be here in time for me to read it for next Saturday? Probably not, because it won't be here until the 10th, probably. So I ordered, not for the next week, but the week after, I ordered Red Palace by June Her. I'm getting it in hardcover because the paperback isn't out yet, and the hardcover was not that expensive. Side note, can we talk about books prices lately? When the hardcover price is $20 and the paperback price is $17, I will spend the $3 extra and get the hardcover. Like, why? Why? Like, why is that a thing? And then I saw a bunch of people like, well, the hardcover and the paperback are the same price. I'm like, what world does this make sense in? This makes no sense. I just need, you know, I'll get the hardcovers. So I ordered The Red Palace by Jane Her, which is the Korean, or June Her. Sorry, not Jane Her, June Her. Which is the Korean mystery, historical fiction mystery that we've been talking about for a little bit. This one, the one that won the Edgar Award this year. I'm going to look forward to really enjoying this. I've been really enjoying this author. I'm really enjoying the history and depth that she goes to. June Her is both brilliant as a writer, at least in my opinion, from the other books I've read. Welcome in, Time. Welcome in, Gambit. Happy New Year. Thank you for the bits. I appreciate that. So June Her, I read The Silence of Bones and The Forest of Stolen Girls. I read both of those out of the library. So I was like, oh, I'm going to buy, again, gift cards are great. And also support various authors that you want to read. I was like, I'm going to buy The Red Palace. This is like a Korean period drama mystery in book form. And apparently it's been getting praise both in the US, but also in Korea. Like, lots of, the translation in Korea is getting really popular. It's got a lot of really, really good reviews for both the history and the accuracy of the history and the accuracy of, like, the story that's being portrayed. And, like, I already know, because I've been following the production of this book, the quote-unquote villain of this book, but it's one of those, it's not so much about the mystery in this book as it is how the characters get to the answer of the mystery and how the characters then deal with the mystery, which is what I'm really, really looking forward to. Also, this author has, one of the greatest things that this author does is she puts together a Pinterest board for the book and a Spotify playlist for all of her books. I'm like, I'm going to really enjoy this. And for people who really like immersive reading, this is a really great way to do immersive reading without dealing with reading a physical copy and listening to an audiobook. I struggle. I can't really do that very well, but this sounds like it'll be a great way for me to do immersive reading where I can have the playlist in the background, listening to it while I read the book. But that's not going to get here until the 10th, so that won't be for next week. But what will be for what I do have going to start planning for next week is the next ancillary book, because I've just been loving these books, the ancillary series by Ann Leckie. And I love, we talked about this last week when we read it. I love how complex Breck is as a character concept, and then the execution, man, Ann Leckie nails that execution of making a character that is at once both so alien in concept and presentation, but have such understandable and relatable to the reader motivations, that you understand why the character makes the choices that they do, even if their thought processes and just being is entirely foreign, right? Like, the main character in this book was the AI of a ship and now is the walking around portion of the AI. Time! Gambit, time! Thank you, Time, for all of those wonderful, wonderful gift subs that you just dropped on this new year. Thank you. I appreciate that. Look at all of those. We appreciate you all. All of these people are going to get some good new joy to hang out with us next year. And we'll let the alerts keep going, because there's going to be a little bit. Oh, it's very interesting that it's not in the order it's listed on the chat. It's how it's popping up in the... I'm very intrigued by how this is putting... Welcome in, Coldrake. I don't want to mute... I mean, I guess I should mute the alerts for a little bit. We'll let it go. We'll let it go. But this gives me time to keep talking about the series and how much I'm enjoying it. So for next Saturday, which will be the 6th, right? No. What is next Saturday? Why can't I think of dates? The calendar is an illusion. It is the 6th. I was right. Ah. For the 6th, I'm going to read the 3rd book in this trilogy, which is Ancillary Mercy. It's okay. No, it's all good. Hey, Coldrake, I totally understand. Reading from the library, take advantage of your local libraries, people. And hey, if they don't happen to have a particular book, ask them to request it, because your librarians can get books and they can request books. And if they know that you people want the book, then yeah, more people will read it. Time isn't real after tomorrow. That's fair, Corellin. Time is not real after tomorrow. So Coldrake was talking about finishing Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. There, I remembered the books because it's over there and I don't want to get up and get it. I'm glad you loved it. I am also looking forward to its sequel, which does not yet have a release date, I don't think. It's been announced, but it doesn't have a release date yet. So yeah, so next week, sequel to this, which is Ancillary Mercy. And then I want to start a read-along. And yeah, 2024, which is kind of nebulous. It could be any time in 2024, and it doesn't have a hard release date yet that I've seen. So what I also want to start next week is doing a read-along with all of you that is, I promise to read slower and take my time. Okay? I promise. But it's also kind of a reread, so I can get back into the series, so I can read the latest book. It's one of those like, oh crap, I haven't read the series in a couple books and was waiting on things. So I've got the first volume, because Pierce Brown released a new book this year and said, hi, would you like more Darrow? And I was like, fuck yes, I want more Darrow, but oh shit, I should reread the books first. So I want to do a read-along with everybody for Red Rising. Red Rising is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi series, and Darrow is one of my favorite all-time sci-fi main characters. And, oh, Krellin, that's good that you have a library close to you. And the sci-fi it starts in a dark place and it goes to an even darker place. And I'm going to activate the spoiler alert tag. If you don't want spoilers for Red Rising and its sequels, which are, you know, the trilogy of Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star, which there's now a fourth book in the series that's tied to this series, that's tied to the trilogy, which I think is actually supposed to be the beginning of a new series, which is Lightbringer, that he just literally released. Yeah, when it's 5 to 10 years between volumes, I do a lot of rereading. Exactly. Like, I still remember what happened, but I'm going to reread it so I remember everything that happened. But spoiler alert for this series. I was watching somebody review Lightbringer, and they're like, yeah, Darrow brings a gift to everybody, and it's murder. And I'm like, yes, it's Darrow. Murder for everybody. Would you like some murder? I feel like we need more murder. How about I bathe in your blood? Like, murder for everyone. If you want to have an idea of what this book is like, take Gurren Lagann and add berserk levels of murder. Red Rising. Darrow is, either you get a murder and no, I get to murder you and all of you over there, and you thought you were safe, but now I'm gonna murder you all too because I need more murder. But is there a drill to pierce the heavens? No spoilers, but, or is it a drill to pierce the sternum? Krellin, we'll have the spoiler tag up because it is also a spoiler tag for a series of books, and I had to get a new edition because mine finally died. I had the first edition, which had the different cover. I actually like the new cover. I think the new cover series, the new art design is really kind of pretty. But the original cover I had was also really nice. When was the first, okay, come on. When was this book? Okay, so this book was originally published in 2013, right? So this is a 10-year-old series. And the answer to the question of whether or not it's a drill to pierce the heavens or a drill to pierce the sternum is yes. Just yes. You know, I mean, it's, so, the comparison to Gurren Lagann is, so I'll read the back blurb of this, right? Back blurb of Red Rising. His wife was taken, his people enslaved. Driven by a longing for justice and the memory of lost love, Darrow will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if he must become one of them to do so. For the first time, Red will rise. And you're like, yes! Yes, it is murder. And rebellion. And more murder. Darrow is a Red, the member of the lowest caste in a color-coded society of the future. Like his fellow Reds, he spends his days working below ground, believing that the blood and sweat of his people are making the surface of Mars livable for future generations. But Darrow and his kind have been betrayed. Discovering that humanity colonized the surface generations ago, establishing vast cities and lush wilds, Darrow realized that he and his fellow Reds are nothing more than slaves to a decadent ruling class. Driven by a longing for justice and a memory of lost love, Darrow sacrifices everything to infiltrate the legendary institute, a proving ground for the dominant gold caste, where the next generation of humanity's overlords struggle for power. There he will be forced to compete for his life and the very future of civilization against the best and most brutal of society's elite. But he will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if he must become one of them to do so. Like, welcome to the murder world. It is Darrow. He welcomes you. So I promise I'm going to say this. Let's give this 2 weeks. I mean, this book is not. No, it's the preview for Golden Sun. So this book is 382 pages long. Is 2 weeks good enough time, y'all, to finish this book? Do we think 2 weeks is good enough time to do a read-along for this book? Maybe. Or should we just give it all of January? And then the last Saturday in January. How many hours per week? I mean, like, I can finish this and we don't talk about how long I can take this. It's you all. Like, I've also read this book. I love this series. So, you know, there's the original Red Rising trilogy, and then there are 2 more books, and then there's the 3rd book, and there's the new Lightbringer book, which is whatever. But if we say, exactly, I am a little bit faster in reading than so normal people. Look, I just established the end of the bell curve. It's not my fault that the rest of you are on the other side. So, let's say we'll read this as a read-along for the month of January. And then the last Saturday in January, which is the 27th, we will talk about Red Rising. I promise not to talk about that until then. Oh, that's fair, Krellin. I've actually slowed down since I was in a car accident. I had a really, really, really horrible concussion that really slowed my reading down. Yeah, and that tells you something. So January 27th. We will read this for January 27th and talk about it then. I promise not to talk about any more... I will not talk about this until... That's fair. All of that. All right. So, Red Rising for the 27th. I'm actually, you know, I'm going to put us in the calendar. I've got like a calendar. I should calendar month. Let's show the month, the 27th of January. Book club read along. Red Rising. Discussion. On the 20th. See, I'm even putting you all in the calendar. There we go. All right. But for next week, it's gonna be Ancillary Mercy. We'll find out what else we add to that. So, Ancillary Mercy, and I'm going to read the next book in the, what is it? It's the, in the Bone Ships series, which is, Call of the Bone Ships. Ancillary Mercy and Call of the Bone Ships. Yeah, Mercy is number 3. So, Ancillary... The first book is Ancillary Justice. The second book is Ancillary Sword. And then the third book is Ancillary Mercy. And then we will have finished the original trilogy. There are 2 books that come out after more recently that are kind of tied in the world, and I guess other things, but it's not part of the same plot, so I don't count it as part of the original series. I'm going to do Call of the Bone Ships, which is the second book in the Tide Child series, which I've just been loving R.J. Barker's writing style and evocative atmosphere. where both the sea itself and the ship are characters in the, like, they feel like characters in the book, right? Like, not that they have their own motivations, but they have their own, they're equally as important as, like, the actual living, breathing humanoids that partake of, are there. And I love that evocative feeling and that world building kind of feeling. And then the last question is for next week, because we're setting things up and I'm giving you all calendar space. You're ending up on my calendar. Things that will end up happening. Do we read? Can I get? Yes, I can. All right, so I'm gonna add the fourth book of the Sujata Massey Paveen mysteries, which is The Mistresses of Bhatia House, for next week. Yeah, because I'm gonna read. So it'll be the Mistresses of the Bhatia House, which, God, I love these art covers. Like, Sujata, whoever does the art for Sujata Massey's covers are just fabulous, and I love them. Yeah, so Paveen is, this is Perveen. Perveen. I have to remember that R. Perveen. But the Mistress of Bhatia House is book 4. So after the Bombay Prince comes the Mistresses of Bhatia House, but we're still, like, in that same kind of... After book 1, I didn't see a lot of... Well, I guess I kind of did, but there you could have theoretically jumped from book 1 to book 3 in this series and not really missed out on anything of plot or character development, because they are kind of... The mysteries themselves are standalone, and there isn't, as of yet, a really big overarching, like, meta plot about Perveen herself. There isn't, like, this big conceptual meta analysis that's going on yet. That's probably going to happen in the near future, but there isn't really one yet. Beyond her, I want to be a lawyer and not get married, and everyone should be respecting me for a lawyer, but they aren't. Like, so there's a little bit of that, but there's not a lot of having to read all of them. Yeah, overarching unrequited potential love versus societal norms. Yeah, it's like, and even that love story is kind of, it doesn't hurt if you jump from 2 to, if you skip 2 or 3, there, you haven't seen any, like, there is no development yet on that plot that might exist in the future. So it's not even like you're really losing out. So, yeah. So definitely for next week, Ancillary Mercy, Call of the Bone Ships, and Mistress of the Bhatia House. Mistresses of Bhatia House. India, 1922. Perveen Mistry is the only female lawyer in Bombay, the city where child mortality is high, birth control is unavailable, and very few women have ever seen a doctor. Perveen is attending a lavish fundraiser for a new women's hospital specializing in maternal health issues when she witnesses an accident. The grandson of an influential Gujarati businessman catches fire, but a servant, his young ayah, Sunada, rushes to save him, selflessly putting herself in harm's way. Later, Perveen learns that Sunada, who's still ailing from her burns, has been arrested on trumped-up charges made by a man who doesn't seem to exist. Well, Bhatia House is a place, right? Like, and I think they kind of threw together a reference of that maybe this might be a thing. And so it's like kind of, if you read the Bombay Prince and then you get to the end of it and they mention the Bhatia House, and you know that's a setup for the next book, but you don't need to have read Bombay Prince, from my understanding, to read The Mistress of Bhatia House, right? Like that connection between the end of the book 3 into book 4 is just kind of like, it's like the end of Hound of the Baskervilles, where they get on the train and they're going back to London, and Sherlock makes a throwaway comment about what will be the title for the next book, right? Like it's not even a connection or plot relevant. It's just, here's a subtle hint about what the next book will be about, but that doesn't actually impact you as a reader picking up that book 4 without having read book 3. Welcome in, Hawkeye. Happy Christmas to you and yours. Happy Christmas to everybody. If you celebrate it, if you celebrate Kwanzaa, if you celebrate Hanukkah, Festivus, I guess, for the rest of y'all. Happy New Year. Well, New Year will be tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to this. So Sunada will become the client, and then there'll be this wonderful mystery, and I'm really... Oh, wait, hold on. Praveen cannot stand by while Sunada languishes in jail with no hope of justice. She takes Sunada as a client, even inviting her to live at the mystery home in Bombay's Dadar Parsi colony. But the joint family household is already full of tension. Praveen's father worries about their law firm taking so much personal responsibility for a client, and her brother and sister-in-law are struggling to cope with their new baby. Praveen herself is going through personal turmoil as she navigates a taboo relationship with a handsome former civil service officer. Haha, yes, we get the romance finally. Book 4. It has been book 4 that we finally get this romance. When the hospital's chief donor dies suddenly, Miriam Penkar, a Jewish Indian obstetrician. I am very intrigued by this, right? Like, you know that there is a wide array of religious traditions in India than is usually discussed. There is a Christian population, there is a Jewish population, but 99% of the time you only talk about the Muslim or the Hindu. And I am going to be very interesting to talk about the fact that this is a Jewish Indian female obstetrician who wants to become the head, you know. Oh, I'm so intrigued by this. And Sunada becomes suspects. Praveen's original case spirals into a complex investigation, taking her into Gujarati's strongholds of Kalbadevi and Ghatkopar, and up the coast to Juha Beach, where a decadent Nawab lives with his Australian trophy wife. Then a second fire erupts and Praveen realizes how much is at stake. Has someone powerful framed Sunada to cover up another crime? Will Praveen be able to prove Sunada's innocence without endangering her own family? I am here for this. Give me all of this. Give me all of this. I'm really liking... I definitely feel like this series it suffered some growing pains in the beginning, mostly I think because the author was trying to balance, Sujata Massey, the author, was trying to balance how much her audience would know about this historical and cultural period while, you know, being with what the character is expected to already know. But I think she's gotten really so much better at balancing that and giving that exposition and world building, quote unquote world building, explaining the history and lore history that would have effect, that is real, that the audience, who is mostly white, you know, mostly non-Indian subcontinent individuals, but people living in America and Western Europe and don't necessarily have that full background of this period of time in history in this particular location. And I think she's doing a much, much better job as the series progresses to kind of balance that exposition that's needed with the understanding of what her characters would already know. I am really enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to this. Yes, Stone Soup. It could be a Stone Soup mystery. I'm intrigued. I don't know who this is on her website, so it could be her. I'm sorry. Hello. I did not know that this is a thing. Everyone, pause. Tangent time. I did not know that this tab existed on Sujata Massey's website. There's a tab for recipes, including the Perveen Mystery Series recipe collection. Hey Pooja, you want to come cook with me? Because there will be cooking streams in 2024. That's already planned to happen. In addition to ordering the Red Palace for June Her with the gift cards I got for Christmas, I also ordered the physical copy of A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, and that also has recipes in the back of it, but those are baked goods. Oh, chicken farcha. This traditional Parsi fried chicken dish cooks fast and is crowd pleaser. Use red chili powder with caution. Ooh, it's an appetizer. Interesting. I'll have to go. Malabar spinach and eggs. Here's a moderately spicy recipe that's a Parsi classic. Malabar spinach, also known as water spinach or poisang, can be found at Asian grocers and farmers markets. The large leaf spinach or Swiss chard is a good substitute. You'll need a wide frying pan with a lid to prepare this dish. Oh, I'm going to have so much fun with this. Kulfi, faluda or widow's punch. I also like that they added the difficulties, right? Like easy or moderate. I mean, it's Parsis who immigrated from Iran introduced this sweet concoction, although it's very popular in Muslim homes and restaurants too. There are many recipes for faluda using different fruits, and some modern ones use Jello cubes as an addition. We're not doing that part. Another good idea is fresh or frozen strawberries or raspberries. Make sure you have tall, wide glasses to best fit this sweet treat that's a combination of sundae and milkshake. Yes, please. Oh, look, Perven's gin lime drink. The British drank tonic water to fight malaria infection, so gin and tonic was a very popular drink. Most Indians don't drink alcohol, but enjoy nimbu pani, a fresh-made limeade, either salty or sweet, made with bubbly or still water. Spiking a glass of sweet nimbu pani with gin creates an Anglo-Indian drink that's refreshing on the veranda. Oh, I'm not gonna... If I cook, another culture's traditional dishes, I don't do fusions of them the first time I do them. I try and do them the correct way. And then maybe after like the 6th or 7th time I make it, I adapt it to other people. But I try and do it the right way first. Lime juice, simple syrup, dry gin, club and soda. I'm glad to know that this exists. Thank you, Sujata Massey, for sharing these recipes with us. I'm going to drop this link in the chat for everybody if they want to check it out. I'm also going to make sure to put a link to this on when this goes up on YouTube. I'll put this in the description box at the bottom so that everybody can also have access to these wonderful, wonderful recipes that the author has created. Side note, again, we do lots of tangents here. I am liking this growing trend among writers of providing additional immersive information, like these recipes that exist for Sujata Massey's books. Then you've got the recipes that are in the back of A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, which if you follow Jennifer Penner, Jay Penner, what is her actual... J. Penner author. And if you follow her on Instagram, she was posting on Instagram the question about like which recipes we should include. She's going to include in the sequel to A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, which is I'm about Dolly and the best dwarf ever. But so I'm very intrigued by that. We were also talking earlier about how June Her, the author of The Red Palace, creates both Pinterest boards and Spotify playlists and adds a bunch of links usually for finding the Korean history that she's referencing in these books, which I really, really appreciate. Like, I appreciate particularly authors who are writing historical fiction, who take the time to put those kind of links in. Yeah, exactly. Koldrick says, lol, I don't really drink, but I read a book where mixed cocktails done properly and with silver stirring spoons, etc., created magical potions. The recipes are real drinks, which made it fun to me. Exactly, yeah, it's like this level of immersion that's being added. So we all know that I like to talk about books. Hi, spoiler alert, that's why we're doing these book club discussion days. And one of the things that ended up happening is because it was Christmas and people were getting ready and doing Christmas shopping and people doing last minute shopping, I had to run over to the local independent bookstore. Was picking up a couple of things, and there was a guy there who was trying to buy books for his high school senior aged daughter. And he was like, okay, well, I don't, this is kind of what she's into, but whatever, maybe something like the Da Vinci Code, because I hear that that's a really popular book. And I'm like, yes, it is. But if I was going to make a comment, you might want to look up the author Steve Barry, Barry, instead, because Steve Barry does similar adventure kind of writing, like, what's his name, who's the author of the Da Vinci Code, does. So it's similar, like, adventure based on historical fact turned into historical fiction. But he does it better. A, I think he does it better. And B, more importantly, Dan Brown. Thank you. Dan Brown. So Steve Barry I think, is a better writer than Dan Brown, first of all. But that's my personal opinion, and that could be other people debate. But as a historian, I think that Steve Barry is a better historian. He always starts at a more interesting point in his discussions of the history that he's creating these mysteries from. And he includes citations in his books for where he's gone. And he'll leave little notes at the back of the book about, like, yeah, this is where... This is as far as we actually know about the history point, and this is where I took the fiction, right? Like, he is very upfront about where that dividing line between history and fiction is, and he's not trying to push conspiracy theory as fact as much as I think Dan Brown wasn't doing it himself intentionally. I think other people kind of pushed Dan Brown that way. Yeah, and Da Vinci Code is the historical mystery puzzle quest. Exactly. Like, Da Vinci Code is really Dan Brown's best work, but it's very, as a historian, it's like, oh, you took 2 points and then decided not to use any of the real history that we know about these points and questions and just went badly with it. Versus, like, Steve Barry, who will say, this is what we know. This is the point at which I take the fact and this is the point at which we no longer have information, and that is where I start my fiction. And this is the sources I used for my facts. Which I think is a better writing convention. Like, now that we're just talking about books, hi, we've transitioned to the second part of this discussion, which is all of the books that I just enjoy reading. So Steve Berry is, oh, Atlas Maneuver is out. I have to go get that on, Cotton Malone is his kind of main character that he's kind of developed. Not all of the books Steve Berry writes is a Cotton Malone book, but a lot of them are. And Cotton Malone is just, I love him as a character because there's this level of Harrison Ford in The Witness level of put uponness that Cotton Malone gets to, that you're just like, I know, like, if this was in the early 90s, I would have turned, but it's not, but it can't be Harrison Ford, because it needs to be a black actor, because Cotton Malone is biracial, which is great. And yeah, Steve Berry now lives in St. Augustine, Florida, but he's actually from Georgia originally. But the books, as you see, are very, very good. And then there's the standalone novels, which is the Romanoff Process. The first ones I read were the Romanoff Prophecy and the Amber Room. Hi, can I adjust this? Here we go. Let's adjust this so you can see more of it. There we go. And they're really kind of really, really good. The Cotton Malone series are really interesting. Where they go is a little bit more, some of the Cotton Malone books, like the Alexandria Link and the Emperor's Tomb, can be a little bit people have accused him of being fantastical realism, but they're not, because they're actually based on science and like an explanation of how in earlier portions of history this may have been taken as magic, but there's an actual scientific explanation if you just know about it, which is really kind of cool. I really, really enjoyed the Amber Room. I loved Romanoff Prophecy. I've read all of the Cotton Malone except the Atlas Maneuver. Some of them I liked better than others. I really liked when he did the Malta Exchange was really good. And the Kaiser's Web. I was not as big a fan of the King's Deception, but that's more because I didn't like the base of I didn't like that particular history that he was starting from. Not the book that he wrote, if that makes sense. And then he also has these books that he writes with a couple other people. And then, oh, he's got ebook originals. Oh, great. More books to read. More books of Steve Berry's to read. Steve Berry would be another really great person to kind of do like a bunch of reading for, because they're great kind of adventure novels. They're really, really enjoyable. I have up to 14th Colony, I think I have physical copies of, and everything else I got out of the library. My dad and I read these together. Yeah, exactly. 30 years of being a lawyer, and now he writes books. And you're like, you can see his level of, like, you were a lawyer, and that has kind of impacted the way in which you treat research, because his research is less, having now been both a lawyer and an academic, or doing both lawyer and academic stuff, less PhD academic lawyer writing, or academic writing, and more lawyer researching. And it works really, really well for what he's writing, right? Like, he's not saying that these are the actual answers to these historical mysteries. He's saying this is a plausible answer based on what we know currently, and that is why it could work, which is a difference than a lot of historian writers, like history people. But he does a really good, like, for example, The Templar Legacy, which is one of my favorites. And I love the fact that Cotton Malone is an operative for the Justice Department. He's not just a CIA guy. The ancient order of Knights Templar possessed untold wealth and absolute power over kings and popes, until the Inquisition. When they were wiped from the face of the earth, their hidden riches lost. But now two forces are vying for the treasure, have learned that it is not at all what they thought it was, and its true nature could change the modern world. Cotton Malone, one-time top operative for the U.S. Justice Department, is enjoying his quiet new life as an antiquarian book dealer in Copenhagen, when an unexpected call to action reawakens his hair-trigger instincts and plunges him back into the cloak and dagger world he thought he left behind. It begins with a violent robbery attempt on Cotton's former supervisor, Stephanie Nell, who's far from home on a mission that has nothing to do with national security. Armed with vital clues to a series of centuries-old puzzles scattered across Europe, she means to crack a mystery that has tantalized scholars and fortune hunters through the ages by finding the legendary cache of wealth and forbidden knowledge thought to have been lost forever when the Order of the Knights Templar was exterminated in the 14th century. But she's not alone. Competing for the historic prize, and desperate for crucial information Stephanie possesses, is Raymond de Roquefort, a shadowy zealot with an army of assassins at his command. Welcome or not, Cotton seeks to even the odds in a perilous race. But the more he learns about the ancient conspiracies surrounding the Knights Templar, the more he realizes that even more than lives are at stake. At the end of the lethal game of conquest, rife with intrigue, treachery, and craven lust for power, lies a shattering discovery that could rock the civilized world, and, in the wrong hands, bring it to its knees. Look, King Philip the Fair can fuck off. They actually mentioned him in the beginning of the book. Like, and that's a really great thing that Steve Berry does, is like the beginning of the book is based on, in the Templar Legacy at least, is is in that historical time. And most of his books do that. Like, this is the starting point for this is the end point of what we know about this particular mystery in history. And what happens in the future is fiction. And he's very upfront about that. Versus, like, the Amber Room, which is literally about what happened to the Amber Room. Or no, Cotton, this is... I love this book. And I love the fact that that Dan Brown gives it a blurb on it, and Steve Berry has just written 50 billion more books than Dan Brown has. Oh, no. So the Amber Room is one of the greatest treasures ever made by man, an entire room forged of exquisite amber from its four massive walls to its finely crafted furniture. But it is also the subject of one of history's most intriguing mysteries. Originally commissioned in 1701 by Frederick I of Prussia, the room was later perfected by Tsarskoye Selo, the Russian imperial Sili. In 1941, the German troops invaded the Soviet Union, looting everything in their wake and seizing the Amber Room in its entirety. When the Allies began the bombing of Germany in August 1944, the room was hidden, and despite the best efforts of treasure hunters and art collectors from around the world, it has never been seen again. Until after this point, when this book was published, it was actually found in a German bunker, and the Germans returned it to the Russians like almost 10 years ago. But this book was published in... When was this book published? Where's the... Where is your... when is this book published? Here, Barnes & Noble. We'll use this because it'll be easy. It's a reprint. The original publication date was 2007. So this is a reprint. Yeah, The Price of the Amber and Gold Leaf. And you can now actually go see the reconstruction that the Germans put up. Whether it's the actual original Amber Room or not is still up for debate, and there are some people who kind of question whether it's real or not. I'm not going to get in that fight with the Germans. That's the Russians' problem. But yeah, Steve Berry, really great author, really enjoyable author who goes to a lot of effort to make his writing entertaining, and he knows that he's writing adventure thrillers, right? Like he writes adventure thrillers that is based on history, and he's very good about putting that dividing line of what is history and what is fiction. That I think the Da Vinci Dan Brown and the Da Vinci Code just kind of ignore sometimes. Maurice Durand. The former minister of... No, he's books. Oh, the Iron King. Okay. It's like, is he also the foreign minister of France? The Iron King, the Strangled Queen, the Poisoned Crown. Became highly conservative over the years and was greatly reflected in the 7-volume historical novel Les Rois Maudits, which was written sometime in the period of 1950s and the 1960s. The series managed to narrate the travails and trials of the French monarchy in the period which led to the famous Hundred Years' War. The novel is the essence of strong storytelling, and it conveyed a rightful message that France desperately needed a strong leadership. To be fair, if you were writing a book about France in the 1950s and 60s, you're not wrong. It wasn't quite as bad as the, other things. Oh, and to Koldrick says, so many potential historical mystery loose threads, like the assassination of the Tsar and his family. Hi. Steve Berry does that. Steve Berry does that in the book, The Romanov Prophecy. Also, Miles Lord is a black man, which is great. It's actually a really good book. And I don't think that, he does a very good job of putting the history front and center and then taking the mystery and going from there. I firmly recommend. And then I love how everybody's referencing the Venetian Betrayal, which is the third book in the Cotton Malone series, but somehow is the one that everybody wants to talk about. Oh, it's because it's the one about Alexander the Great. And Cassiopeia Vit. Oh, yeah. Also, this is a book in which... It's a very interesting book, and I don't want to give spoilers for the ending of it, but it is... If you are of a certain age, i.e. you lived through the 80s and 90s and certain things that come out of that, it's a very interesting examination of certain things in a time period that's also... It's a good book. Read the book. Sorry. I don't want to give spoilers because it is such a good one. But yes. So we've been talking... Okay. So we talked about Steve Berry, who is one of my favorite adventure authors. And the whole point was that I recommended... and they had in this independent bookstore with this guy who's looking for a book for his daughter, they had the Omega Factor, which is a standalone, and it was pretty easy to like pick up and read. And it's also kind of like you sit there and you go, the Omega Factor. The Ghent altarpiece is the most violated work of art in the world. 13 times it has been vandalized and dismantled or stolen. Why? What secrets does it hold? And this is a true statement. Like, the Ghent altarpiece, you can look this up. And we will look at it. The Ghent altarpiece, also called the Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, is this. It's this. This is this beautiful triptych, or polydict, right? Like, it's all of these individual panels in Ghent, and, or Belgium. And it was begun around the mid-1420s and completed by 1432. It is attributed to the early Netherlandish painters and the brothers Hubert and Jan van Eyck. The altarpiece is considered a masterpiece. Attribution, style and technique. The Adoration of the Mystic Lamb. Oh, good. When your dad, Time says, I've been to see it several times when my father worked in Brussels. Yeah. So, you sit here and you go, this is a book, this is an actual historical point. You can go look up the history about it, and you can go find out more about it. Enter UNESCO investigator Nicholas Lee, who works at the United Nations Cultural Liaison and Investigative Office, which does exist and is a real place, real division. Yes, it was one of the pieces in Monument Men. When Nick travels to Belgium, Mick's job is to protect the world's cultural artifacts from countless lesser-known objects to national treasures. When Nick travels to Belgium for a visit with a woman from his past, he unwittingly stumbles on the trail of the 12th panel of the Ghent altarpiece, stolen in 1934 under cover of night and never seen since. Soon, Nick is plunged into bitter conflict, one that has been simmering for nearly 2,000 years. On one side is the Maidens of Saint-Michel, La Verture, Vultures, a secret order of nuns and the guardians of the Great Truth. Pitted against them is the Vatican, which has wanted for centuries to both find and possess what the nuns guard. Because of Nick, the Maidens have finally been exposed, their secret palace in dire jeopardy, a vulnerability that the Vatican swiftly moves to exploit, utilizing an ambitious cardinal and a corrupt archbishop, both with agendas of their own. From the tranquil canals of Ghent to the towering bastions of Gascon, and finally into an ancient abbey high in the French Pyrenees, Nick Lee must confront a modern-day religious crusade intent on illuminating a shocking truth from humanity's past. Success or failure, life and death, all turn on the Omega Factor. And honestly, this is really the only book that Steve Berry has where the Vatican is like the big mystery bad. And I kind of appreciate him for that. It's so easy to make the Vatican the bad guy when it comes to like art thrillers or historical thrillers like this. But Steve Berry has written a large number of books, and very, very few of them have the Vatican in it at all. Like, the Vatican is mentioned in the Templar Legacy, but it isn't important beyond the fact of what the Vatican, like, beyond the 14th century, or 15th century end of the Templars themselves. And most of the time when the Vatican is mentioned in the Steve Berry's books, it's because of the actions of the church during the Middle Ages or the early Renaissance period, and less about what the Vatican is doing these days, which I greatly appreciate as just a difference, you know. Yeah, exactly. And they have a secret fair with aliens. What's this one? I haven't seen. I saw this one in the bookstore the other day, and I didn't pick it up. Luke Daniels is in London between assignments with the Magellan billet when he receives a frantic call from an old friend. Oh, it's a Luke. Okay, so Luke Daniels is Grant Blackwood's character. No, he's a side character. Oh, he's a side character in... That's what I was remembering. He's a side character in the Cotton Malone series. So he's a side character that he's getting his own kind of book in The Ninth Man. Ooh, I should look this up. I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. Look, if we're talking about side character books, please go read these. Please go read the original and then go read the rest of these by Catherine Addison, and then come back and we can talk about this. So, now we've talked about my favorite thriller writer, adventure thriller writer, I guess is the right way to say it. And we're going to do a read-along of Pierce Brown. Do we start... I guess I should put up a poll and ask the question of what other things should we have been reading? What should we read? Because we know I'm going to read, like I said, for the 13th, we're going to have book club. We're going to have the Red Palace. Definitely. We'll figure out what else we're going to read then. We're not going to have a book club meeting on the 20th because we're doing family stuff that it'll be important. Because Mom's birthday is important, y'all. Alright, so what have we got for next week? The Ancillary Mercy, Call of the Bone Ships, and Mistress of Batia House. Those are ones we can read. I can read in a week. And then the Red Palace for the 13th. The Red Palace is going to be historical YA fiction, so that's going to be a pretty quick read, for me at least. Oh, I know what I have that I haven't read yet that we should add. Hold, please. 30 seconds. Okay, so for next week, this is really going to not work because it's going to green screen out, but it's Ancillary Mercy, which I am really looking forward to seeing the end of Breck. But another one that's going to green screen out awkwardly. Hi, this is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is book 1 in the Greenbone saga, which is... all 3 books are out. There's 3 books? 3 books. Yes, all 3 books, right? Now that's going to bother me. Hold, please. Hold, please, while I go... Greenbone saga. Yeah, 3 books. Jade City, Jade War, Jade Legacy. Yes, I will post all of these on the community tab on YouTube. I will also post them under the chat when this VOD goes up, like the little, as Hank Green and Jonathan Green have labeled it, the doogly doo. But so Jade City, that will be what I read for the 13th. I was like, I had a couple other books that I wanted to finish and put up there, and then this is my I've been taking a long time and slowly reading this book. Book. This is what I laughingly call my car book. A book that I enjoy and I'm enjoying reading, but I'm also one of these, I can pick it up and put it down and I can just let it live in my car or in my bag. And so when I have a couple of minutes, or if I want to sit and, sit at the cafe for a couple hours, read this and, just have that be my book to read for the day. This is David Daglish's Soul Keeper, which is book 1 in the Keepers series. What to say about this? This is dark fantasy zombie apocalypse and release of magical beings that want to destroy the world and humanity. Oh yes, and a fire elemental that is non-verbal but is the sassiest motherfucker in the world, and I love it. Oh no. Coldrake says, oh, a tall drink of water with an even longer sword. No bodice to rip. Coldrake, this is a priest on the cover. I would like you to know that this individual, this is a priest. This is a priest. Do we see how he's all like priestly and clericy? He's a priest. Devin Evanson is a soul keeper traveling through remote villages as a preacher and healer. He is a priest. I understand how one could be confused by the tie neck, like leather thong tie neck shirt, open at the collar, the thongs the tie kind of pulled out, the long black duster coat, the thick leather gloves, the oversized long sword that he's wearing, carrying over his shoulder. But yes, he is a preacher and a healer. And his But when mysterious black water washes over the world, the veil is torn, flooding the land with ancient magic and forgotten races. Fire that dances as if alive, corpses that walk, and creatures that can manipulate time itself. And not all creatures that have reawakened remember humanity fondly. Oh, I have no guilt about this pleasure. Coldrake, you say this is a guilty pleasure. This is not a guilty pleasure. This in no way is a guilty pleasure. I am not guilty about this pleasure. I am straight up fond of this pleasure. And that's ties neatly into another point. I am not, as I have discovered, the target audience for the genre romantasy. That's just not me. I'm not that target audience. If you enjoy it, I'm happy for you. Enjoy it and do you. You do you. I don't care for ACOTAR. If you don't know what that is, it's A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Oh, Other Doc, welcome in. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. How are you doing today? Welcome in, Raiders. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are sitting here chatting about books and books that we enjoy and plans for the new year about what we're going to read. And I am shocking Coldrake with the statement that I am not a fan of most romantasy, fantasy romance genre. I don't care for A Court of Thorns and Roses and its sequels. The series I actually really like from Sarah J. Maas is The Throne of Glass. And I got to read that. So A Court of Thorns and Roses was originally published as a YA novel. I would like you all to remember this moment, okay? It was originally published as a YA novel. They very rightly have shifted it since to adult fantasy, but it was originally published as a YA novel. My personal opinion is open door sex scenes don't belong in YA. Closed door sex scenes are fine, but open door sex scenes, and definitely not the ones that have very kind of level of questionable consent issues that come out of A Court of Thorns and Roses and its sequels. And so A Court of Thorns and I have to look this up now. Sarah J. Maas. Okay. The books. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is the first book in the series. When was it originally published? When was it give me the publication date. I love how all you have to start if you go on to like Barnes and Noble, the first thing you just start typing Sarah, you get Sarah J. Maas, and it's the first book in the series. So, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Come on, give me the product details. This is was published in... No, that's not... It was published in 2020? I don't know. God, that tells me how long things are. But the original book series, The Throne of Glass, was older, and I liked it better because it's a fantasy series that happens to have romance happen. That's a thing. The A Court of Thorns and Romance it's a romance novel series that happens to be in a fantasy world. And I'm like, I don't object to that. And there is now, apparently, according to people who are really into them, a bigger plot for the later books. But I'm not a fan. You can do you, just not my fan. But I don't shame anybody for enjoying them, or even the sex scenes that aren't in the smut that's in them. Happy New Year's Eve, old Jim. How was Age of Empires? Gave you no end of trouble? That's good. Oh, managed to beat it. That's even better. So, I am not a big fan. Again, you do you. I have read and quite enjoy Shirley and Kenyon, Laurel K. Hamilton, well, certain Laurel K. Hamilton books. I've stopped reading Anita Blake, but I read a lot of them. I love I like Shirley and Kenyon. I've read, like I said, I've read a lot of them. Most of them are not really for me, but I have no shame about enjoying them. The ones that I do like. But I mostly enjoy reading fantasy, other genres for that purpose. I just have an extra thing over here that I don't know why. I have a bunch of hangers, but it's in my way and I need to move books. Because we have books. I have a lot of books. Did I mention that I have a lot of books over here? Okay. So. So. We have a plan. And we're going to finish Ancillary Mercy, Jade City, and yeah, we'll come back. I'll figure something else. I'll add that. But for next week, we're going to read, like I said, Ancillary Mercy, Call of the Bone Ships, and Mistress of the Batia House, which is the 4th book in the Pavine series. And maybe we read maybe we start a Steve Berry read-along. Do we start with Cotton Malone or the okay, look, I'm going to put a poll up. I'm going to put a poll up, and I'm going to give you all a good amount of time here. Do we start? New poll. Steve Berry read along, starting with Cotton Malone series or standalones. Give you a good 5 minutes on that. Start the poll. All right, so that poll is up. So we're talking about if we do that, because then we'll have two different read-alongs going, right? Then we'll have, because we're going to start with the read-along for Red Rising, and then have, you know, read Red Rising for January. And then if we start doing a Steve Berry read-along, then that would also be like have that end by the same date. So that would put, I think that's a good thing to do, right? Like, welcome in, Faye. Yeah, I decided I was gonna do, we were talking, I was like, I want to go read Lightbringer, which is the new Darrow book, and I was like, well, I should reread this series. So I was like, all right, let's do a read-along for for 2024. Yes, there are now five, well, technically 6. The original trilogy, and then 2 standalones, and then Lightbringer, which was released in November or early December. So that's a good 6 months of reading to get all of that. And Cotton Malone is an established and polished character versus the standalones, which are all very interesting and have very different characters. But the question is, where do we start? Where do we start? Look. Pope, you can have your Horus Heresy. I've read all of Vulcasian. All of it. All of it. And if we do a read-along of that, I and Faye promise not to monopolize the plot with basically saying, why did you do that, you dumbass? Also, you're a dumbass for... Look, there is no guilty pleasure in reading Dresden. Dresden is actually great. I support it. I support, like, read what you enjoy and you love. There's never a bad thing to read what you enjoy and you love. If it doesn't harm anybody, then go solo, have at it. Yes, I will do Dresden in audiobook just to listen to James Marsters read those books. Welcome in, PB. Actually, Coldrake, Jim Butcher's new big book did come out. It's just, it's the sequel to the Windless trilogy, Windless, Compass. And he's back in his aerospace, he's in his airships steampunk world. And that was released last month. And now, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, when I read James Butcher's book, Jim Butcher's son, and it is hilarious. And I just, for Pope's pleasure and everyone else, it is Schrodinger's dildo. But yes, I enjoyed that book a lot. And I love the fact that it includes Schrodinger's dildo is an not Schrodinger's, Chekhov's dildo. Sorry, Chekhov's dildo. Yes. Yes. Look, it's called Dead Man's Hand. It is it is good. It is a very good urban fantasy. It is a very good example of Chekhov being of the Chekhov understanding. Schrodinger's legacy is, murder. This is a Chekhov's dildo, and it is that the payoff for it is perfect, and the line is perfect, and the tone in which it's given is perfect. And I literally had to shove my scarf in my mouth at the cafe I was sitting in so I did not have to laugh uproariously. Okay. With 67% of the vote, only 2 people voted. Only 3 people voted, but that's okay. We have a vote. It happened. With 67% of the vote, we're going to start with the Cotton Malones. We'll start at the beginning, because these books do actually have not really an overarching plot, but the references that all the characters, like Cotton Malone references experiences that happened in previous books, so you do kind of have to read them in order. So we will have, for the 20th, for our read-along, to go with Red Rising, and we will also read The Templar's Legacy, which is on my shelf over there, and I have in hardcover, and I'm gonna go read it because it's great. Oh, I hope I have access to it. If not, I'll get it from the library again. It's great. So we'll start with Templar's Legacy, which is the first book in the Cotton Malone series. So, I'm liking this. I'm building out my building out my month of reading, and it kind of helps me a little bit because I feel like this is a good way to kind of like keep things on track, and plan things. Mostly so I can plan like when I'm talking about them with you, not really like a big complicated thing for me. Coldrake, we can read a portion of books online, but you can't play music on it. You still have to remember that the audiobook is considered a derivative work of the original, and therefore is also protected by copyright protection, and therefore also could be complicated. And a thing. All right, but I guess the question is, chat. I guess the next question is, what? Oh, it's 10:30. I need more water. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave you all with a question, and then when we come back, I will find out the answer to that question from you all. I'm going to start a fight. I'm going to start a fight in the chat, and when this goes up on YouTube, I will probably start a fight on YouTube. Who is your author that is considered currently to be that popular fantasy author that you just don't read? And I'm saying specifically fantasy, not fantasy romance, so we're ruling out Sarah J. Maas and all of that whole genre, but fantasy authors. And I will tell you mine straight up before we go to break, and that is, I don't like Brandon Sanderson, and I don't want to read any of his books. Not that he's a bad person, but I don't want to read any Brandon Sanderson. I'm done. But we're going to take a break. I'm going to run the ad break, and I'll see you in about 8 minutes, everybody. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're refreshed, you stretched, you bioed, you did all of those good things. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel again for part 2 of our final book club meeting for 2023. And as I left you all with the question of who is a fantasy author that you do not read. And interestingly enough, most of you were saying that you, Jim and Faison were both saying that they don't not actively avoid anybody currently at the moment, which is fair. Coldrake and Krellin immediately put in George R.R. Martin, which is also fair. I liked Game of Thrones. And this is, I've said this multiple times on my streams and on other people. George is a good high concept guy. He's not really a good baseline plot progression kind of guy. And I mean that to say that the world he created in Game of Thrones is very interesting, and I like the history that he's kind of developed, and I kind of want to see, you know, I like the world itself. But the plot he's trying to write for characters that he's created, but does not understand or does not care to pay attention to the fact that the characters he created would have specific motivations, and he's created them with those motivations, but then he's like, well, shit, I need them to get to X point, and so I'm going to have them ignore all of the motivations and character and everything that I've already created and ignore it all so I can get them to X point and just say, fuck it. And you're like, asshole, if you were a good enough writer, you could have gotten that character to that same point without just saying, fuck it, I ignore the motivations and character that I've already created. Just saying. You can go ahead and clip that. I stand by that statement. And Faye says, anyone I know to be a bigot I avoid, but other than that, can't think of it from the top of my head, other than JKR, and she's not really doing anything right now. Fair. Oh, I know what I was going to pull up. I'm going to pull up Goodreads. And because they always have very interesting authors, right? Like interesting lists that end up on authors. I have other problems with Orson Scott Card. My problem with Orson Scott Card is tied to his fantasy. Come here. I want lists. I want the lists. More book lists. Book lists. There are other problems about and a lot of people have other problems with Orson Scott Card. His sci-fi, well, I mean, we can also talk about sci-fi. And his best fantasy authors. Best fantasy books 2023. Let's look at what Goodreads fantasy list is for 2023. Just because I want to talk about fantasy, we can also look at their sci-fi. Best fantasy of the 2020s, I guess, is their list at the moment so far. Yeah, and then you found out about what he was and didn't feel the need to read anymore. Yep. And if you know, you know. That's a thing. All right. So let's look at. Okay, so this is the best fantasy best fantasy of the 2020s, best fantasy first published in the year 2020 to 2029. For this list, it has to have more than if it has less than 100 ratings, or if it is not published between 2029, it will be removed. In particular, please put fantasy books with a greater than 100, less than 100 ratings on a different list. We will check that list out in a minute. So, oh, these are more than 1,000 by ratings. Best fantasy books of the 21st century, best fantasy of the 20th century, best forgotten fantasy of the 20th century. We'll come back to those because I like looking at the lists. Do not, Faye, you don't read Fourth Wing. Don't read Fourth Wing. Don't read Fourth Wing. As a person of our age group, Fourth Wing is not for us. Like Fourth Wing is not for us, and it's fine. And it's fine. It can have its world. But Faye, it is very much a romantasy novel that if you have any background in dragon riders, and I said this in one of my chats previously, like I had to run a chat because I was in the Barnes and Noble and I was looking at the sequel to Fourth Wing had just come out. What is it? It's Iron Wing or something. I don't know. The sequel had just come out, and they were like, if you like Fourth Wing, you might want to check out these books. And I'm looking at it going, okay, Sarah J. Maas, fine, it's a romantasy. George R. R. Martin, maybe no. I don't think that's one of these things is not like the other. And then I'm like, you want to know what's not on this list? About a book that is very, very published and touted as a romantasy novel and is about dragon riders and a mental connection between riders and their dragons, and this turning into a porn. You want to know what was not mentioned at all? Pern, right? Like, the dragon riders of Pern did not exist on this list. And I was like, okay. Anne McCaffrey was not out here publishing books like this for you to forget about her existence, no matter what her son is trying to, after the fact do. Yeah, it was, and I was like, there's a reason we called it dragon porn, y'all. But look, I do not know Krellin. I do not know how these booksellers did not make that connection, among others. And there was no connection. There was no list of like Laurel K. Hamilton, Sherilyn Kenyon, any of these other like actual romance authors who wrote fantasy, urban fantasy and paranormal romance and all of these things. Nightbot, why do you keep trying to put that? I deleted that whole thing. Timers. Disable that timer. Thank you. No, it's like Coldrake, none of the authors before the year 2010 existed, like, or 2000 existed, because I'm sitting there going, Sherilyn Kenyon, Laurel K. Hamilton, fucking Anne Rice. None of these were mentioned in these great lists of the quote-unquote important romantasy smut. And I'm like, they didn't have Kushils. Like, I asked one of the, because it was in the store. Okay, this is going back a little bit, and reasons why I'm not, like, whatever. And I'm in the store, I'm looking at a bunch of books, I'm considering a bunch of things, and I think this is the trip I actually buy R.J. Barker's Gods of the Weird Wood, and that's the book I could not put down. But I'm at this trip, I'm there, and these like 20-somethings are talking about like how they just read ACOTAR and they were so into it, and TikTok kind of was like pushing Fourth Wing, and they're like, what else can we read like this? And I'm like, Do I? And then I decided, listening to the rest of their conversation, that the answer is yes, I do, because I do need to introduce them to. They're like, I don't like, nobody put sex in books, in fantasy books, before Sarah J. Maas. I'm like, bitch, please let me introduce you to some history. First of all, we can talk about our great honor, our mother of all things smut in fantasy, Anne McCaffrey, who was a brilliant bright guiding light and deserves so much more love. I mean, I can understand that, Jim, if your ex really loved McCaffrey and you're hesitant about getting into it. I mean, the first book is really Dragon Riders of Pern, which is the first book, is really the weakest of all of them, and the other ones get much better and are really, really interesting, and what she does with the world and the sci-fi fantasy aspects of the world are really great. But if it has bad connotations, it has bad connotations. So I told these younglings, I'm like, okay, you don't think that romance had sex before Sarah J. Maas? This is Laurel K. Hamilton and a little thing called Anita Blake. And if you thought ACOTAR was smutty, we'll talk when you finish this. Here's Sherilyn Kenyon. And what was the other one I handed them? Like, I handed them a third one just to be like, oh, Kushiels. I handed them Kushiels. I was like, and when you are ready to graduate to truly, truly messed up depictions of porn and BDSM, here's Kushiels. By the way, that was when I found out that, oh, what's her name? Who's the author of Kushiels? Come on. Give me Kushiel's Legacy. Who's the author of Kushiel's Legacy? Because that's bothering me. Jacqueline Carey. Jacqueline Carey has released, as of this year, a new book. You want to break your heart, go read Cassiel's Servant. You can literally have your heart torn and stomped into pieces by reading Cassiel's Servant, and have smut at the same time. For those of you who don't know, Cassiel's Servant, which was released this year, is the guy's perspective for Kushiels. It's so it's Cassiel's Servant is all from Jocelyn's, or it's from Casseline's perspective versus Jocelyn's. Yeah, Jim, I wouldn't start, honestly, if you're reading Drag McCaffrey, I would not start with the prequel, because I think that kind of like honestly takes away from some of the mystery that is the original like trilogy, and the reveal of how some of the space effect kind of comes into it. And so then you read the prequel backwards. It's like this, it's kind of like people who try and watch the Star Wars movies in number order and not in chronological order. And you're like, no, you can't do that. Because if you stop and think about it, it's like, you have to, the appropriate way to watch Star Wars is 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because if you don't watch 5 before the prequel trilogies, the reveal about Darth Vader, which I don't know why I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. I'm sorry. This is the reveal that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, and Darth Vader is Luke's father. doesn't have the same impact because you watched the prequels first. Yeah, exactly. Machete order. Um, so if you like, and that's the thing about the Pern books. Yes, she eventually went back and wrote this prequel that's set in space that explains so much about the world building that she does, but it makes more sense when you do like the first three books, at least the first the first trilogy, really, and then go read the one in space. But or you can read this one in space anytime after the first trilogy. Yes, Coldrake. All right, so back to our list, right? So this is the best fantasy of the 2020s according to Goodreads and according to based on an aggregate of greater than 100 ratings with an average rating system. Oh, look. 2 books that I will probably never read. Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, or Rhythm of War, which is the 4th volume in the Stormlight Archive. House of Earth and Blood, which is the first book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. Joe Abercrombie. Joe Abercrombie, I'm going back and forth on. He keeps failing the first page test for me, and that's kind of my thing. Like, if I read a book and I pick it up and I'm not sure if I want to read it or not, and I open it to the first page and I try and read the first page, and if I get to the end of the first page, if it makes me want to turn the page, then I will continue reading the book. But if I don't want to turn that first page, then I'm not going to continue reading the book. Mostly because I have to read a lot of things that I don't enjoy anymore, or are not for pleasure. And so I don't want to waste my time on books that I'm not going to really enjoy. And if you say, well, you have to push through beyond chapter 1 or beyond the first book and then it gets good. I don't want to have to gain a taste for something, like learn to appreciate, like, maybe, but, develop a palate for it. No, I want to be able to enjoy it right away. And I've heard good things about this particular series, which is the Trouble with Peace is the second book in the Age of Madness series, and I've heard some good things about the Age of Madness trilogy to begin with. Hello, welcome in, Harry. So, like, I'm willing to give it a little bit of a thought. But here's the thing, Faye. As much as I didn't think all of the first Harry Dresden books were good, I finished that first page and I wanted to turn it. At least to find out what happens, right? Like, even if I'm like, the book as a whole is not good, if I want to turn the page, that's the point at which I'm going to do it. So that's kind of my line. Where are we? Oh, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I've heard good things about, but have not picked it up yet. I read The House in the Cerulean Sea. Absolutely love it. Will go back and read it again. I wasn't a big fan. See, the thing is, I wasn't a big fan of the Shades of Magic series, but I did like Vicious and its sequel. So I liked other V.E. Schwab. I just didn't like Shades of Magic. So I'm kind of like on the fence about the Addie LaRue. Hold on a sec. I just want to zoop away for a quick second while I do a thing. Quick thing. Okay, just wanna... Because I figure I can log in to Goodreads, but I don't have my actual login, so I have to reset things. And just... Okay. Alright. Now let's go back to... Best fantasy of the 2020s, right? That's what we were looking at? Why did you... Okay, here we go. Why is it so hard to search on Goodreads? Why did it go away? Here we go. Finally. Nope. Nope. No, that's the best books of the decades. I want the best fantasy books of the decades. No, here we go. Oh, this is how I'll do it. Yay, I found it. There we go. Found the list again, now that we're backed in. Alright. Mostly because now that I'm logged in, I can rate things as we go. Alright, so... I wish there was an option to say, I don't want to read this book. House in the Cerulean Sea. Read. Definitely read. And I will give it a good 4 stars. It is a very good 4 stars raid. And then... I don't care. It is... House in Cerulean Sea is a wholesome, loving, you know, just wholesome joy, squishy fantasy novel in a dystopia. And you're like, oh, it takes a while to kind of realize how exactly dark a dystopia you are in as you're reading this book. But it's kind of, it's like very Pratchett and very Douglas Adams kind of level of humor in this cozy little fantasy. And, oh wait, this is a dystopia. Oh yes, and Lucifer, the child of Lucifer is one of the characters in the book. And he is a sweet little cinnamon roll that must be protected, who also offers to murder a bunch of people for you. Jim says, I say that while I like the Dresden series, there's one thing that mildly annoys me about Butcher, and that's that apparently he and I have the same influences, and we both started writing urban fantasy at roughly the same time, to be able to actually finish his. I mean, Jim, I will read your book. I read Naomi Nova. Have I read Deadly Education? I haven't read Deadly Education yet. S.A. Chakrabarty's Empire of Gold. which is part of the Davabad trilogy, which is the last book in the trilogy, which is interesting. It's that high. Haven't read that yet. Want to read that series yet. Black Sun, which is Rebecca Rowanhorse, also is a want to read. Paranesi, oh, wait, The City We Become, which is The Great Cities, which is the next trilogy that N.K. Jemisin is writing. And if you haven't read N.K. Jemisin, please and thank you, go read it now. The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I've never heard of this book yet. Yeah, N.K. Jemisin is great. The Rule of Wolves. Oh, that's Leigh Bardugo. We'll come back to that. I did read Peace Talks. Read. I'm not going to read it right now. It's a 3. I mean, it's a good 3, but it's not my favorite of the Dresdens. I thought Deadbeats was better. The Burning God. Oh, the Poppy War. Oh, Poppy War. How do we talk about Poppy War? None of these people are great and everybody's murdering everybody else, but you kind of want to root for them, but at the same time, God, is it messy. That's my rating on the Poppy War. Yeah, that's kind of a lot of people's, like, I kind of want to just... I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3. Like, if you're average, like, on a... I'm so sorry, but what? What went wrong? Okay. Are you accepting applications to be friends on Goodreads? I mean, you know how to find me, Jim. Court of Thorns and Roses. Do not want to read that book. Again. Haven't read all of The Wayward Children yet. I have to read that. Age of Madness. Again, back to Joe Abercrombie. And... Faye, are you saying don't read Wayward Children? Or Poppy War? I'm not a big... I don't know that I want to... Like, Age of Madness, I'm kind of going back and forth on. That'll kind of be there. Once and Future Witches, which is actually over there. No, don't read ACOTAR. Oh, I tried reading the first book, and it is not for me. The entire concept is not for me, but for people who want to read it and want to have that kind of reading experience or focus on that, go right ahead, enjoy that. Once and Future Witches, I did read. That's a closer to a... Like, if it was... Can I give it a 3? Like, can I give half side? Like, I want to give it, like, a 3.5. Like, I wish I could give it a 3.5 here, people. Alright, well, you're going to get a 3 because you were not a level 4 book. Harrow of the Ninth, however, was a level 4 book. If you have not read these series, please and thank you, go read Tamsin Muir. You'll thank me. I'm not going to read Trust the Emerald Sea, but is there a way we can just say, I don't want to read this book? No, apparently not. Black Tongue Thief. Never heard of that one. Kinshashanak owes the Takers Guild a small fortune for his education as a thief, which includes but is not limited to lockpicking, knife fighting, wall scaling, fall breaking, lie weaving, trap making, plus a few small magics. His debt has driven him to lie in wait by the old forest road, planning to rob the next travel that crosses his path. But today has picked the wrong mark. Galva is a knight traveling a survivor of the brutal goblin wars and handmaiden of the goddess of death. She is searching for her queen, missing since the distant northern city fell to giants. It's not immediately catching me. I think you'll enjoy Nona, Faison. Oh, look. Patricia Briggs. Oh, a new Mercy Thompson. Have not read that yet. John Gwynne. This is another book author who I keep hearing good things about. And I think I want to read, but the only times I've ever been in the bookstore or on tried out of the library, they never have book one in any of his series. And I'm like, well, that means I don't get to read them yet. Okay, Witness for the Dead. Yes. Witness for the Dead. Hello. Straight 4. Obviously straight 4. Like, I read that book. I loved that book. It's right here. Witness for the Dead. The Cemeteries of Malo, book 1. It is a short, quick little read. You will enjoy it. You will think it. Thank you. Even if you haven't read Goblin Emperor, you can read that series and appreciate it. More Crescent City. I wanted to like Legends and Lattes. This is true. I wanted to like Legends and Lattes so much, but I didn't. And that's the thing. Sorry. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. I was like, oh, somebody had their D&D character and they wrote the retirement for their D&D character. And that's really what it felt like. Yeah, exactly. It's sometimes you don't like something no matter what you want to, and then that was Legends and Lattes for me. It was fine. Oh, I can just click this. There we go. I mean, I guess I'll give it a 3. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just blah. I mean, it was there. It was not memorable in any way. Unbroken Magic of the Lost, the Cecile Clarke, The Master of the Djinn, P. the Jelly Clark. I've heard good things about this one, but I haven't read it yet. Shorefall, no. Battleground. I liked Battleground more than I liked, the other book that was higher on the list. What was it? Which is weird because it was apparently much more preferred. Oh, Peace Talks. I liked Battleground more than Peace Talks. And I think it's because the way Peace Talks ends, you're setting up for Battleground in such a way that it doesn't feel like it has a satisfying ending for Peace Talks itself. And then Battleground and Peace Talks should really be one book. At least that was what I was thinking. I think of them, at least for me. I think it was one story that really should have just been, and I felt that the way it ended was just Peace Talks is better, or Battleground was better, sorry. Physicians of Vilnock, Penrick and Desdemona, again, a decent Lois McMaster's Behold book. With all, yay, Behold, yep. This series, Blood and Ash and Flesh and Fire, like Jennifer from Blood and Ash and The Shadow and the Ember are both like really strong, apparently really popular romantasy books that I have no desire for, and I have like not going to read them. These are another big TikTok, Instagram darling books that have been like really, really popular, and a lot of people are like, eh. It doesn't make sense. Like, the world building doesn't really make sense. A lot of the book doesn't make sense, but they're really popular. And again, the a lot of quote unquote porn books, whatever. Oh, T. Kingfisher's Paladin's Grace. I did like that book. I'll give that. I liked it, but I didn't really. I mean, it's not a Witness for the Dead book. Yeah, so it's not a 4, it's a 3. It's a 3. I did enjoy it, but it's definitely a 3. Babel. Have not read that yet. Do want to read. I've heard, I like R.F. Kuang's books. I mean, we know that now because of my opinion of Poppy War. How to Rule an Empire and Get Away with It. I've heard interesting things about this book, but I haven't read it yet. The Witch's Heart and The Witch and the Weaver are both books that I really, really want to read. I've heard really, really good things about them, and from their history and example, I think I want to read them. But, like, R.F. Kuang, Faye says Babel was decent, but a little heavy-handed. I mean, it's R.F. Kuang. I need to make sure. The Kingdom of the Wicked. Oh, Carrie Maniscalco. I want to read this. This is another book author that I really, really want to read. I've heard some really good things about them, about Carrie Maniscalco, and I've, like, kind of think it'll be a good book. The Adventures of Amina al-Safari is the new series by Shannon Chakraborty, and I'm like, I liked what you did with City of Brass. I didn't love it, but I did like it. I'm interested to see what you do with Pirates. Emperor's Wolves. I wasn't intrigued by that. That didn't pass my first page test. Black Song, Raven's Blade, the Raven's Blade series didn't pass my first page test on the first book, so why would I read the second? Justina Ireland. Who is this? Dread Nation. What is this about? Come on. Jane McKean was born 2 days before the dead began to walk to the battlefields of Gettysburg and Chancellorsville, derailing the war between the states and changing America forever. In this new nation, safety for all depends on the work of a few, and the laws, like the Native and Negro Re-Education Act, require certain children to attend combat schools to learn to put down the dead. But there are also opportunities, and Jane is studying to become an attendant, both trained in both weaponry and etiquette to protect the well-to-do. It's a chance for a better life for Negro girls like Jane. After all, not even being the daughter of a wealthy, white Southern woman could save her from society's expectations. That's not the life Jane wants. Almost finished with her education at Miss Preston's School of Combat in Baltimore, Jane is set on returning to her Kentucky home and doesn't pay much mind to the politics of eastern cities, with their talk of returning America to the glory of its days before the dead rose. But when families around Baltimore County begin going missing, Jane is caught in the middle of a conspiracy, one that finds her in a desperate fight for her life against some powerful enemies, and the restless dead, it would seem, are the least of her problems. Now, I like 3 things in this, but one thing I really, really don't. I'm not a zombie person. Like, I just am not. And even books that have, like, this kind of thing, I'm just not a big... So I might take it. I might try and read the first volume in this, at least. I mean, it's YA. I kind of am hit or miss on YA. And that is more just because I know I'm not the target audience for it. And it has, because of that, you know, there are times when it's just not for me. And that's fine. I can be, yeah, and not for me. But I do like historical fiction. I do like historical fantasy and urban realism. But it's zombies, yo. It's zombies. Maybe. The Year of the Witching. What have we got on that one? In the lands of Bethel, where the prophet's word is law, Emmanuel Moore's very existence is blasphemy. Her mother's union with an outsider of a different race cast her once proud family into disgrace. So Emmanuel does her best to worship the Father, follow holy protocol, and lead a life of submission, devotion, and nope. Just no. I understand this is going to be a fantasy feminist retelling, and we're going to be fighting against her struggles and getting out of, like, all of this, but I'm like, I can see a Mormon cult fantasy a mile away. Oh, welcome in, Raiders. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing all? Welcome. Let's give a shout out to our wonderful lady, Luck. Welcome in, Mandy. I saw you were finishing out the, Zelda. We're sitting here chatting about books. I planned what the books I'm going to read at the starting of the next year. Hi everyone, I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Let me zoom over here. Welcome to the channel. I use she, her pronouns. I do a lot of TTRPGs on this channel. I play occasional video games, and also have started a book club on Saturday nights where we sit and talk about books that I have read and books that I'm encouraging other people to read, because I read a lot. I don't know if you notice, I read a lot. And if you want to check out any of those, or if you want to check out any of the TTRPGs that I run, there are YouTube VODs that are up, and you can go check them out over there. They're really great, and you know, see what I'm liking or reading. Every time we do one of these book clubs, I try and make sure I post links to each of the books that we talk about. Specifically, I try and make sure where possible, I post links to the author's own personal web pages, and then that way you can support them on their books however you choose to do so, and wherever it is most convenient for you. But we're also, you know, it's the end of the year, kind of looking forward to what I'm going to be reading next year, but also kind of looking to see what's out there, because, you know, sometimes you miss things that have been released, and you're like, okay, I want to see what else is out there. So right now we're taking a look at the Goodreads Fantasy 2020's best of the 2020s so far books, based on the list is based on books that have more than 100 ratings, and then it's based on the aggregate from there. So it's been an interesting look at books that I've read and books that I haven't read, or books that I'm just not a person that I would read. Okay, look, more Bjold. Masquerade and Lowly, Penric and Desdemona. It was not my favorite of the Penricks. It was not my favorite. Age of Death, Legends of the First Empire. What is this? This I have not read. Did not know. Yes, put a passive on books that you want or that are coming up that you might want to. And I'm like, it's not really a TBR so much as it was a timing list for when I'm going to talk about the books that I'm reading. So Age of Death. Oh, this is the 5th book in the series. Well, that's going to be a problem. I need the first book. Right? Like, how can I talk about... Don't give me these short novellas in the before. Give me the first book. Oh, this is the Age of Myth series. Oh, I have heard really good things about this from Michael J. Sullivan fans. Yeah, exactly. Plans changed. Usually a reminder if you don't have it pre-ordered. Exactly. So Age of Myth, inaugurate... Okay, set... Since in time immemorial, humans have worshipped the gods they call Frey, truly a race apart, invincible in battle, masters of magic, and seemingly immortal. But when a god falls to a human blade, the balance of power between humans and those they thought were gods changes forever. Now only a few stand between humankind and annihilation. Rati, reluctant to embrace his destiny as the god killer, Suri, a young seer burdened by signs of impending doom, and Persephone, who must overcome personal tragedy to lead her people. The Age of Myth is over. The time of rebellion has begun. I've heard very interesting things about this series, both positive and negative. I think this is a book series I will check out the first book from the library and then see where I go from it. I think that's where that's going to be. Legends of the First Empire. Oh, that's part of the Michael J. Sullivan series. Duty Bound. Interesting. What's this? What's this? What's this? And that's as far as I'm going because we don't want Disney to come after us. We don't want Disney to come after us. Okay, Duty Bound. It's an interesting cover. As long as there's light, there's hope. When young Lucia Sanin, High Maiden of Maz, receives a gift from her long-lost father, her whole world changes. Lucia and the other heirs of nobility are forced to face the sins of their forefathers and bring their world from the brink of darkness. With the help of the Lightwings and its power, Lucia must heed the call to assemble the Light's virtues and lead them into battle against the very sins. Ooh, I don't think it's for me. I don't think it's a me. I don't think it is a me. That is okay. Magic Sword, Magic Divine. 176. Look, there's supposed to be an average of 100 ratings. Some of these are not even rated. So, like, why are you on this list? Falling asleep for almost 300 years was never part of Penray's plan. Of course, when you're a mercenary with magical abilities and defy a spell-binding prophecy, bad stuff happens. Now magic is long gone from the world, so Pen works as a karate instructor, trying hard to dodge her hot, flirty, and super annoying colleague, Callan. Why? Is it the super annoying part? Because we know that's not really true. This is High. What is his actual problem? Because we need to know before we get into this book and we know what the romance trauma will be. Please and thank you. All is well until a Georgi, a nightmarish magic-eating monster, shows up at a New York City street fair, forcing Pen to use her shaper magic, which allows her to transform wood and metal into deadly weapons. I mean, if you're on a street fair in New York, wood and metal are going to be kind of prevalent. It almost sounded intriguing until that hit that romance sentence. Right, Mandy? Right? Now the Georgi's masters her scent and their eye on stealing her 300 years of life. If they succeed, Penn succumbs to centuries of sleep again, and magic will be unleashed on a completely unprepared world. And to add to her ridiculously complicated life, something isn't quite right with Callan, which she could figure out if it weren't for the evil apocalyptic plot she's trying to stop. But Penn may not have a choice. Callan could be the secret weapon that she needs to save the world. Nope! But at least they listed as a paranormal romance. Good for them. Not for me. Nope. Nope. Heaven's Official Blessing. Yes. That's a 4. If you have not read it yet, you can actually now buy the translations of the novels in, like Barnes & Noble. I saw it in Barnes & Noble. And, it was very good. Wait, Nora Roberts has started writing a fantasy book? What the heck is this? What? Yes, the translations are finally available, and there actually was like a whole table. It was really weird. So for those of you who don't know what like the Heaven's Official Blessing, Guardian, the book that goes with The Wanderers, which is actually what is it called on the and the demon cultivation theory, which is the actual title for the book that is The Untamed, are all now available on English with really, really good actual English translations. And this one is Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Thank you. I'm like, what is the actual title of that book? It's like, it's The Untamed. Look at this cover. Can we take a minute? Can I click on it? Can I click on it? No. But it is actually, they're fully published. You can go read them now. They're actually really, really well done. Yeah, no, the translations were really, really good. You can skip, like, I read Husky and the White Cat and his White Cat Shizun. You can kind of skip it. It's the darkest of the series. Well, that's not true. Immortals is darker. A Thousand Autumns also has the full translation out. It is, mwah. I fully love A Thousand Autumns. I saw Stars of Chaos, but I didn't pick it up. But I love and Guardian, please go read Guardian and then watch the series so that I have somebody to talk about it with. Mandy, I need to talk about that series with someone. But I'm sitting here looking at Stars of Chaos, Guardian, Heaven's Official Blessing. All of these are sitting there. Okay, this is volume 1. I'll make sure I'll give that a 4 because I actually really liked Thousands of Autumns. And I'm sitting here looking at it going, they put these books in the YA section, and I'm like, tell me you haven't read these books and you're just putting these here, like, well, they're like manga, right? And I'm like, they're like adult manga. Priest is not YA. Priest is not YA. And then they had Shizun. They had the Husky and his White Cat Shizun. And you're just like, and Scum Save. And they had Scum Save in the YA section. I'm like, no. I can link you. I can link you Guardian right now. Watch me link you Guardian. Mandy. It is one of the best. Oh, best. It is so good. I'm just gonna drop this I'm gonna drop this link, this hot fast link on you, Mandy, and I will also yeah, I will also drop but yeah, it is one of Priest. It's the first Priest novel. So hi, we're also going to talk about adaptations for a brief second. And Guardian, come on, here we go. So Guardian is the first of the Priest BL novels to get an adaptation, and it stars two of my favorite actors of all time in Chinese dramas. That is Baiyu and Zhu Yilong as the main characters, and you're just like, they did such a good job with this, and they walked that fine, like, if you don't know, hi, okay, so rewind. If you don't know, Guardian is a BL novel, which is a boys' love novel, but isn't really, because it's about adults, and the main characters are wholly adults. They are not, this is, a BL is what in East Asia is referred to any LGBT representation, or at least of the male type of LGBT representation. And Guardian was the first of these novels written by the author Priest to get a live action adaptation. And it's really, really, really good. And this came out the year before this series, Untamed, which is the adaptation of Guardian, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, which is also a really good adaptation. But because these are Chinese dramas, they have to walk a very, very fine line, because, hi, the Chinese censorship don't like the gays. They really, really, really don't. And so they have to make it subtext, because if it's too close to being text in any way, shape, or form, the ban hammer will come down. And there are a series right now they were doing a live action production in filming of Heaven's Official's Blessing, and that got hit with the ban hammer by the Chinese censorship, and it probably will never see the light of day because of it. But Guardian, the actors in Guardian, A, had read the novel, and B, understood the assignment and walk that line so hard to be able to say, yep, we're not doing anything that will get us in trouble with the censorship police, but we want you all to know, hi, wink, wink at the audience, that this is not queer baiting. These are actually a queer couple that will actually get together, sort of, whatever. But you're not gonna get, I was watching a YouTuber talking about queer baiting, and specifically talked about how this series was queer baiting. I'm like, no, it's not. When you can't have queer baiting in a culture and in a production wherein they are legally not allowed to show anything. Good night, Faye. Have a good one. Like, that's not queer baiting. That's illegal. Not the same thing. Go for it, Mandy. So Mandy is going, I'm encouraging Mandy to buy books. It's fine. I take total responsibility for this and encouragement. But yes, but Priest is the author. And Priest has also written a number of novels that are both, can we have the Chinese English translations? Stars of Chaos has got an English translation. Liu Yao, which is one of her het series, one of their het, her probably, although so Priest is a nom de plume and is you know, is their writer's name, and you will probably never find out what their actual name is because the books that they write are hella illegal in China, and they may or may not, although it's never actually, probably not, someone got arrested and people thought it was Priest, but it may not have been. So, hi, yeah, this is not an author I'm ever going to out on for any reasons. Oh yeah, no, Heaven's official blessing is so worth it, and the translation is really, really good. They did a really, really good job of working with the translators to make sure it works. But the imprint, Wattpad now has its own imprint basically, and you can go and they're publishing from their own imprint from for the translations. So Nora Roberts has a fantasy romance series again. Interesting. I'm intrigued that it got upvoted so much. I am, however, happy that it's above Fourth Wing. Or, well, it's tied with Fourth Wing. I wish it was higher, but I'll take what I can get. I'll take what I can get. Oh, look, more Tamsin Muir. Princess Floralinda and the 40 Flight Tower? I am intrigued. I must see. It's not one I... Springleaf Fourth Wing is one of the big, you know, pushes this year from TikTok and Instagram and all of those, and I'm just like, it's a thing. When a witch built the 40 Flight Tower, she made it very sure to do the whole thing properly. Each flight contains a dreadful monster. Is this a story? Is this supposed to be a 40-story tower? Ranging from a diamond-scaled dragon to a pack of slavering goblins. Should a prince battle his way to the top, he'll be rewarded with the golden sword, and the lovely Princess Floralinda. But no prince has managed to conquer the first flight yet, let alone get to the 40th. In fact, the supply of fresh princes seems to have quite dried up, and winter is closing in on Floralinda. I have to. This has to get added to my list. It might be like Tamsin. Is it counted as YA? No, it's not counted. It's not tagged as YA. What is the... Okay, they have 1 star. They have 1-star reviews. What is the 1-star review? Spoilers. I don't want spoilers. The only way I could give this book 5 stars would be the fact that this novella is a tragedy were intentional. But alas, it believes itself to be a comedy, empowering, and an original spin on deconstruction of fairy tales. There's nothing new here. It isn't funny. It isn't a happy ending. Oh, no. Everything is relative and these 150 pages felt interminable. Oof. Not a really popular introduction to the franchise, I see. Um Just seeing if there was anything else on this list that I have read. I'm sorry, what? Shakespeare for Squirrels? I need to know more about this. This is... You can't just throw away the title Shakespeare for Squirrels and not have... Oh, God. Shakespeare meets Dashiell Hammett in this wildly entertaining murder mystery from the New York Times bestselling author Christopher Moore, an uproariously hard-boiled take on the Bard's most performed play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, featuring Pocket, the hero of Fool and the Serpent of Venice, along with his sidekick Drool and Puck Monkey Jeff. Set adrift by his pirate crew, Pocket of Dog Snogging, last seen in The Serpent of Venice. Okay, so this is a sequel. Washes up on the sun-bleached shores of Greece, where he hopes to dazzle the Duke with his comedic brilliance and become his trusted fool. But the island is in turmoil. Aegeus, the Duke's minister, is furious that his daughter Hermia is determined to marry Demetrius instead of Lysander, the man he has chosen for her. The Duke decrees if, by the time of the wedding, Hermia still refuses to marry Lysander, she will be executed, or consigned to a nunnery. Pocket, being Pocket, cannot help but point out that this decree is complete bollocks, and that the Duke is an egregious weasel for having even suggested it. Irritated by the fool's imprudence, the Duke orders his death. With the Duke's guards in pursuit, Pocket makes a daring escape. Oh, Lord. The rollicking tale of love, magic, madness, and murder, Shakespeare for Squirrels, is a Midsummer Night's Noir, a wicked and brilliantly funny good time conjured by a singular imagination of Christopher Moore. I'm sorry, what? What is the... I always look at the one-star reviews. I work in a bookstore. Every month we receive ARCs from publishers, and when Shakespeare for Squirrels came in, I thought it sounded like something Terry Pratchett would have written. And it would be funny. It was not. That's fair. That's fair. I just couldn't get past the incredible amount of raunchiness. I need to reread Midsummer Night's Dream in hopes of getting this one out of my head. Either that or go bash my brains in. I mean, Midsummer Night's Dream is kind of raunchy. And if you don't know that, maybe you don't know the period's raunchiness, but it takes more than some cleverly placed quotes from the Bard placed into a harebrained reimagining of AMD to entertain me, and the gratuitous F-bombs contributed nothing. At least it was mercifully short read. I'm intrigued. Okay. It's not for me, but okay. Just seeing if there's anything else on this list that I have read yet and would put a rating on. Interesting. This is another book I've heard really interesting things about. Kakei. I need somebody to say this repeatedly. Book order placed. There we go, Mandy. Wait, I'm confused. This book was listed as part 1. Are we repeating? Oh, look. This book I'm going to put a 4 on. I agree, Jim. The Shakespeare noir thing sounds fun, and then but the level of comedy was maybe not. Um, but yes, Bone Ships. Hi. That's why we're going to read the sequel, Call of the Bone Ships, for next Saturday, or at least I am, and then I'm going to talk about it because I love these books. I'm really, really enjoying R.J. Barker so far. Django Wexler. Now, to be fair, I haven't read a lot of new releases in the past couple of years, mostly because I really, really haven't had time. But yes, I saw a couple. Nona of the Ninth. Yes, I really. Why is Nona so far down? I liked Nona. Um, I don't like Sanderson, so I didn't even try the secret projects. Um, Nether Penrick. Yeah, why was Bone Ships below the top 100? Because of all of this is about voting books up and down on the list. So this is kind of like a it's not an aggregate of like these are the books that have the highest rating and therefore they will be above, but no, it's about like these are the lists. To be on this list you have to have you must have this many ratings, but after that you can get voted up or down by people just on the list. And I'm like, that's why Fourth Wing is so high. And it's not a good book. Oh no, Goodreads doesn't care. Like, they really don't care. Well, they care about fake. Well, that's not true. Other people care about the rating, the voting, but Serpent in the Wings of Nights. I've heard interesting things about this book. Some people really, really like it, and some people really, really hate it. And I just don't know. I haven't have an opinion at the moment. The adopted human daughter of the night-born vampire king, Oriya, carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is entering the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy amongst the most vicious warriors from all three vampire houses. To survive, Oriya is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. Everything about Rain is dangerous. He is a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet what terrifies Oriya most of all is that she finds herself oddly drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kajari. War for the houses of night brews, shattering everything. I don't know. Like, this, again, I'm not a big romanticy fan, and this is supposed to be a really big push for the romance side of it, and I'm just... If that's your thing, enjoy it, but it's not mine. Oh, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I liked that book. I liked that book. Trinity, Mother of... Coming... More Nora Roberts, I guess. She's come real... I mean, like, I love Nora Roberts, don't get me wrong, but I'm really surprised that she's on, like, a fantasy list. The Chalice of the Gods. Hi, Percy Jackson. Yeah, I liked The Chalice of the Gods. I'll put that as a 4. I think that was a good 4. Cast in Conflict. The King of the Fairy. Nope. Never Wraith. The Boy Who Cried Christmas. A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. Nope. Martha Wells, The Murderbot Diaries, which I have not read yet. I should read The Murderbot Diaries, but I've not read them yet. A Court of Frost and Starlight. I can't rate The Good Ship, The Call of the Bone Ships, because I haven't read it yet. But I kind of want to, because it's going to be... Which of the first book, Mandy, which one are you talking about? The Murderbot series? I've heard really, really good things about the Murderbots. I haven't read it yet. And then the third book is so far down. Like, why are they... Like, 3,000 ratings with an average of 4.5 stars, and only one person voted for this book. I'm like... These books are really good. I am so sad that they are so far down this list. Grief of Stones. Grief of Stones is a 5. I'm giving it a 5. I do think Grief of Stones is actually better than Witness for the Dead. Just a little bit. Like, the difference between a 4.5 and a 5. Like, it was just a little bit better, but it is better. It is so good. We Ride Upon Sticks. None of these I have read or even heard of. Well, that's not true. I have heard of Ne'er Come to Rise, but... Also intriguing what books are not on here. Or at least not that I've seen. Okay, so these are all Sharon and Meyer. These are all fantasy romance. Alright. Boop. Close that. Close that. Okay, best fantasy on Goodreads with less than 100 ratings. Alright, so less than 100 ratings. Treasure of Gwenlai. Interesting. I don't expect there to be anything I've really read on this list, mostly because I don't expect... Interesting that Duty Bound was both on this list and the other list. A lot of these look like indie published books, which is fine. It just means that there's less people know about them, and therefore they need they have lower ratings, or lower number of ratings, I should say. Okay, look, we are going to look at this book because the cover art. That's why we're looking at this book. All right, have a good night. Sleeps, Mandy. I'm probably going to end up here soon as we finish this little bit of Goodreads check. But, hello. Open image in a new tab. Has he just got a frowny face? He's got a little frowny face. I'm sad for him. Cain has lost everything, including his soul. Instead, a demon's soul is housed in his body, longing for chaos and destruction. Everything that keeps him on a path separate from utter chaos is the only... I cannot. I'm sorry. I just can't. If I can't even read your blurb, I'm not going to read your book. No matter how intriguing your cover art is. Yep. Okay. So, It is midnight. I do actually have to do some stuff tomorrow. Not really, but a little bit. So I think this is a good place to end for tonight. We have our plan for next week. I am going to read Ancillary Mercy, Call of the Bone Ships, which is the sequel to the first Bone Ship book, and Mistress of Bhatia House, which is a Praveen mystery. It's an India mystery set in India. Thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Thanks all for just having like a chill Saturday evening in the last book club meeting of 2023. When we come back next week on January 6th, we'll be diving into things, and we will also, we have our read-alongs. We're going to be reading the first book in Red Rising, and the first Cotton Malone Steve Berry book, which is The Templar's Legacy. We're going to finish those for January 20th so that we can talk about them, and that's the current plan. So we have a plan. And if you've just joined us hanging out, thanks for joining us. If you came over with Mandy on that raid, really appreciate you coming over and hanging out. If you want to check out any of the VODs of anything that we talked about so far, there's the YouTube. You can hang out over there. I really appreciate it if you do. If you watch any of those VODs, you know, drop me a comment or a like. You know, help us fight the dreaded algorithm. Also, hi, you want to help me out and support me, there are a couple ways you can do that. First, there is a merch store, and by the end of next week, next session, January 6th, all of the I'm going to be taking all of the bunch of the current stuff is going to be retired. So if you liked any of those designs, the Congrats on Your Paper Trail, Vampires for Nixon, I Survived the Lord Math Experienced t-shirt, any of those, you want to add them to your collection, you have by January 6th. Otherwise, I'm going to be retiring all of those designs. See what we can get new. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the channel, we have the penultimate episode of Carousel Court 1998. Interesting things are building. We are getting to the, it is the penultimate episode. Interesting things happened in last session's episode, just before Christmas. And when we come back, I can't wait to see what happens. You can also find me next Monday, the 8th, over on Wandering DM at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, as we come back with the next season of Vampire the Masquerade Montreal by Night, where we're having some fun. I get to play your friendly neighborhood Ravnos. All of the good things. And also, you should be here tomorrow night, because there will be an announcement about things that are going to be coming after Carousel Court. But if you also want to give me, if you also want to support me a little bit more directly, you should check out the Ko-Fi. I have one of those. It goes directly into the stream, helps me buy things like a brand new camera, which my friends were very kind and generous and helped me fulfill my Ko-Fi goal for that. So we're going to get us a new camera, which will make cooking streams a little bit easier and fancier. Fun times like that. But thank you again for hanging out, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your love of books and appreciating the fun times that we get here. We're going to go raid. Oh yes, the Praveen recipes will be happening. We're going to go raid Little Cup of Joe. They are playing some Pure and having so much fun with that. So until next time, everybody.